Yeah, I would say so.
So shut up, Ace. Take your white knight armor and shove it up your fucking ass.
Well, like I said, look, that's his conclusion, right? I'm talking about the starting point, right? Because we're going to have to evaluate every single world's religion and look if they have the proper presuppositions to form the argument. And the conclusion is that they don't. And so someone like Coffee will conclude that Christianity is true because of that, or and other reasons.
So he's looked at every single religion? Is that what you're saying, Ace? Is that really what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that he specifically has. I'm saying that the argument goes that none of the other world's religions have the proper presuppositions.
But they would have to go through all of them first.
Well, I mean, can you provide another world's religion? Like I told you.
Well,
I showed
Ace,
you that-
Ace,
that
the issue
Hinduism-
is that what you're saying isn't actually relevant, right? Because like, let's suppose that he did. Let's suppose for a minute that he actually went through all the world's religions and he demonstrated that all of them are incoherent. How are you able to conclude that Christianity is coherent?
That's not the argument, right? The argument is that none of the world's
That's the
religions
conclusion.
have. Well, no, that's a separate conclusion, right? I'm just stating that again, none of the other world's religions have the proper presuppositions to form the argument, right? Because that's what Silent was saying. Silent was saying that any other world religion can form the presuppositional argument, and that's false.
Right. And that's deductive. That's a deductive claim, right? So, what was the general principle that would show that?
Look, Jack, Tiny Toffee takes it that he's had revelation from God. Can you explain the problems with that?
Well, is revelation a form of divine communication?
Yeah, I would say so.
So you have to interpret God's utterances, right?
In some sense, yeah.
So I don't understand how you can interpret an utterance without some kind of independent access to the utterer's intentions.
Right. This sounds somewhat like kind of a bottlenecking issue of knowledge.
What?
Are you saying that without some sort of knowledge about God's intentions, the utterances or the communication from God would be bottlenecked by our own fallibility, our own cognitive fallibility?
No, what I'm saying is you don't have a way of ruling out interpretations that are inconsistent with God's intentions without independent access to his intentions.
What's interesting is, like, I thought this revelation was just something that was beamed in your head. What do you mean you had to interpret it?
Well, okay, so to have cognition of it, to actually have an understanding of it, you would have to go through some sort of cognitive process. But
well, then you could be wrong.
It's innate revelation.
Well, then you're just admitting you could be wrong.
No. How am I?
Why are you guys taking this guy seriously?
Is that a perfect process?
You're just assuming that your interpretation was correct, even though you said you needed to interpret it. It's just a joke.
So this is just that. Isn't that just to assume internalism?
To assume internalism?
Yeah.
Who's asking you how you interpreted the revelation? You said you had to interpret it.
Well, sorry if my thought process wasn't clear there, but if externalism is true, then we could appeal to God being the one who programs us to interpret the information,
or you could
justify our interpretation of it.
But you said you had an interpretation. What was your interpretation? What was the message in and message out?
I don't exactly see how that's relevant.
No, the point is, how do you know it's the correct interpretation without some outside justifier?
Right, but that's exactly what I'm saying is I would know it's the correct interpretation if externalism is true, and I can appeal to God being the, metaphorically speaking,
your interpretation of God?
Programmer.
Your interpretation of God.
See, that's gonna fall into an issue, right? So anyone else making a similar claim, right, that they had been, quote, programmed to correctly receive the message from God, you're not going to have any further justification for why their intuitions about revelation are correct and are incorrect, and yours are correct.
So, Tofi, one way that I think that I would see the issue is that, like, basically you've said that you receive a message from God and then you interpret it. So there's sort of like two potential places where an error could be introduced. It could be introduced because God is prone to error, but I mean, it seems clear to me that you're going to want to rule that out. You're going to want to say that that's not the sort of thing that God can do. But then the other place that an error could be could arise is in your own cognition. And I take it that you're probably not going to want to say that your cognition is necessarily free from error.
Right, which is this is what I.
Sorry, before I respond to Procrustes, I think there's an issue in saying that with the idea of error on God's part, right? Because if it's just the case that God is causing a particular interpretation, then you could have multiple contradictory interpretations of the same text, and it would still be correct, right? It'd still be it'd still have no errors, because that's the way God caused it to be.
I don't know exactly what you're getting at, because we're talking about innate revelation at the moment. But
yeah, I'm saying that you could have multiple individuals, right, who have contradictory, quote, innate revelations, and it would be in virtue of God having caused those dispositions, right, that they would be correct, even if they were all contradictory.
Right, but that's just kind of pontification. I don't acknowledge the possibility that we could have contradictory innate revelation. So I don't see exactly how that is an issue.
What would be the contradiction?
What now?
What would be the contradiction in saying that God would cause you to believe one particular kind of revelation, and God could cause a person B to believe another kind of revelation? What would be the contradiction there?
Are you saying? What do you mean another kind of revelation?
It's revealed to you such that it's the Christian God. It's revealed to someone else that it's the Muslim God. It's revealed to someone else that it's the spaghetti God.
Yeah, that would be pluralism. That would be why there's a contradiction. That would suggest that the world.
You haven't shown this to be a contradiction, right? Because it's in virtue of the belief being caused that it's correct. It doesn't matter what the belief is, right? You're not looking for you're not looking for any consistency, right? All you're looking for is a caused belief.
Whether the interpretation is correct, and that whether you interpreted God's intentions correctly.
Well, yeah, but I answered that objection is just, as I said, that is to just assume internalism. If externalism is true, then you can appeal to God being the programmer, and if you know God is the programmer, who is allowing you to receive the revelation without your fallibility being untainted, and it seems that it was really a bottlenecking issue.
But the only way you know it, your only justification is that you know it to be true by revelation. So how can you make the claim to externalism when that's internal? There's no external logic to that.
When you have an if thrown in there, you can't claim to know in a way where you can't be wrong, because you're just saying, when you insert an if, you're saying that you could be wrong.
I'm sorry, where was the if inserted?
If externalism is true?
Oh, I'm saying that for the sake of the conversation. I'm an externalist.
You said if God was a programmer, if this, you said if a couple times.
Right, I believe all of those things, but I'm saying.
You think that there's no way that you could be wrong, right?
No, I'm saying consider
But you acknowledged
these.
all these ifs.
I mean, I can stop using the word if you want, but
You've already said it, right? So you're fucked.
no, it's again, okay. When I say if, this is the case, I'm saying consider this is the case. If this were true about the world, then you would have.
Regardless, it doesn't change the fact that you can't make a claim to the external world because your justification is simply revelation, which is going to be circular.
Yeah, but as I was trying to say earlier, I don't think circularity and question begging are the same thing.
Sure, like we can just say question begging instead of circular. I don't really care. It's still fallacious.
Could you show how it's fallacious?
Sure, it's true because I was told it was true, and because I was told it was true, it is therefore true. That's just definitional. Like that is the example of question begging.
I don't see how.
Do we need to get you the definition of question begging?
Saying it's
yeah. Let me apply your logic with just like a quick thing, right? It's true I fucked Blair White because someone said I fucked Blair White, therefore I fucked Blair White. Do you believe that?
I don't think that's the claim I'm making.
Oh my god, guys, this is weapons grade obtuseness. When are you just gonna let him sit in his own fucking stew?
Because there's nothing better on right now.
Like he's literally deciding not to accept your logic. He's put the top of his head down and he's walking forward. There's no way. You guys are literally going to have to, in some sort of figurative sense, break his fucking legs to get him to realize what's going on. And I can't see you doing this. This is weapons grade obtuseness. I don't know how you get past this.
I don't know. It just seems like a circulatory conversation that's going nowhere. That's just
it's exactly what it is, and he's designed it to be that.
Right. He's not. I agree with Gus.
Well,
Toph, I mean, do you know what? Can you explain to me? Like, can you give me an example?
The thing is, I don't think Toffee is dishonest anyway. I just think this is the things that he's done.
Just listen to him. Hold on.
I just think he's constantly heard people like Darth Dawkins. He's heard these other people talk like this. He's gotten these arguments.
Listen to the little noise, guys.
He believes this stuff. He's not dishonest.
Hold on.
Listen to the little noise he makes. Listen to that little noise he makes. You know, that's a noise. That's a noise that people make when there's like, look, I mean, I'm just trying to be reasonable here. I don't know what's going on with all you people. Just none of you are making any sense.
I agree
to me,
with
that's just putting on a fucking face.
But Gus,
you guys are just spinning your wheels here.
Gus, hold on 1 second. I agree with you, right? I'll give him one more opportunity before I check out, at least myself. But so I'll ask you, Toph. Can you give me an example of what would it be to be begging the question?
Yeah, begging the question is just when you restate the premise and the conclusion, or restate the conclusion as a premise.
Right. So can you give me an example of that?
If I were to say, sorry, I'm not good at forming examples on the spot.
It's true that I fucked Blair White because I have direct.
You aren't supposed to give it, Wolf.
Therefore, I fucked Blair White.
Look, it doesn't matter. Do you think there's something wrong with the example that Jovan brought up?
What was the example?
Jovan?
What did I bring up?
Sorry, was it no Jovan or was it Wolf? Excuse me.
Silent White being racist.
No,
what was the
Don't
example?
black people sound the same?
Wolf, just give the example again.
It's true that I fucked Blair White because I have direct revelation that I fucked Blair White. Therefore, it's true that I fucked Blair White. I knocked them ankles loose.
I don't agree with the argument.
You see the noise?
That's
Did you hear the little noise he made?
Yeah, you hear that sigh? That's
okay,
yeah.
I heard that song.
So was that not him begging the question in that case, there, Toph?
No, I don't think it.
Right, I understand that you disagree with the argument because he probably didn't fuck Blair White, right? But the question is,
Right,
was that an example of him begging the question?
Right, that's what I was saying. I don't think that is.
How is it not an example of him begging the question?
Yeah.
Because he didn't restate the conclusion as a premise.
Yes, I did.
You have to restate the premise as a conclusion. You can't restate the conclusion. This is the conclusion.
Yeah, sorry, I got that mixed up. By the way, Gus, the sound I make is me saying It's not. I'm saying
It's a sigh. Let's not be dishonest.
No, I'm going
I'm not
That's
gonna
me
lie,
saying
I'm getting mad Mark Thomas vibes from this guy.
Oh no, I'm thinking he is trolling. Damn.
What?
Yeah, that was pretty troll, dude. I mean, it's pretty clearly either kind of begging the question or circular logic. Either way, it's fallacious, right? Would you know what a circular logical fallacy is?
I'm not familiar with the term, no, but hang on. It's
Yeah, that sound you're making there is not you starting with an A. Thank you. But I'll just clarify what a circular logical
No,
fallacy.
that was fiction fighter.
No, that was tough. So, let's see,
No,
like
but-
what's the classic circular logical fallacy, right? Is when
This is me sighing.
Is when someone yeah, thank you, Toph. The classic circular logical fallacy is someone says the Bible is true because it's the word of God, and it's the word of God, and I know it's the word of God because the Bible says it's the word of God. That's the classic circular logical fallacy.
Who is this person talking?
I think it's fiction fighter.
Tandem.
Yeah. Okay, but yeah. So again, I don't see how saying. Oh, somebody's playing a Darth Dawkins soundboard.
Yeah, Fiction, can you stop, please? Or she can. Thank you.
Yeah,
Whoever muted her. Thank you. Continue, Toph.
Mute her.
I don't see how saying something is true because I have revelation is question begging. You say that's obvious.
How do you
but I'm
know
not-
it's? How do you know that it's true?
Because of revelation.
Yeah, right. So you just stated the premise is that you know that God is true because of revelation, and how do you know that? Is because it's revelation, and therefore God is true. Do you not see how that's just definitionally question begging, or are you going to continue to just be a troll and be obtuse?
Sorry, when you say how do I know that, what is that in reference to?
What?
You said
The question
okay.
is, how do you know that to be true?
Yeah.
No. Okay.
What do you mean? What is that in reference to?
You said the initial question is, how would you know that God exists? And I said because of revelation. Or how do you know that? How do you gain any knowledge? Because of revelation. And then you continued on, and then after that you said, well, how do you know that? What is that in reference to? Because
How do you know your statement based on revelation? How do you know that that is correct?
Because it's the revelation.
Exactly. So you wasting our time and being obtuse, right, by asking me that question was meaningless because there was exactly the same response is going to be for me, right? Which is that is begging the question by definition.
Okay, how do you know that what the revelation states is true?
Because it's revelation. He's just going to say that.
Yeah, because of the nature of the revelation.
Because it definitionally is in his worldview, right? But he has no evidence of that.
Fiction fighter, do you not know how this isn't an argument? Or whoever's talking? I don't know who's talking.
You're proving the conclusion with the conclusion.
Yeah,
How do you know the nature of the How do you know the nature of the revelation?
I think it's pretty fair we have the consensus.
Because of the revelation?
Yeah, I think this guy's troll time is over.
And this is a shit topic at this point. We still have reached a consensus on this. We can move on.
Why aren't you guys just presenting parody arguments like Wolf?
I know, yeah,
Atheism
like
is true because there's a book.
We already did that.
We already did that.
Tells me atheism. Why did it stick? Really?
No.
Yeah,
with that, like Hail Satan because Hail Satan. I mean, I made one involving me banging Blair White's like trap pussy, but I mean, we've all come to the consensus on that.
All right,
Yeah, I think we're kind of done with this guy, right? Like he's just pretending. He's either a complete moron or he's pretending to be a complete moron.
So, Silent, are you objecting to him using circular reasoning?
I'm not interested in you right now, Darth. Thank you.
Oh, why is that?
because you're a piece of garbage. So goodbye.
Oh.
Okay.
Yikes.
Yeah, because I just want to find out if you object
Yeah,
to all
yeah.
circular reasoning.
Yeah,
Darth,
look,
do you not?
Circular
Do you
reasoning.
think of yourself as intelligent?
Yeah, because if Silent thinks that all
Didn't
circular
Darth
reasoning
didn't
is
Darth give a
fallacious,
strong argument for why he doesn't?
then how would he
Doesn't
support
Darth fuck his
any
dog?
particular predication or assertion?
Look, here's the
swear to God, I
thing,
heard
right?
that.
Is we've
He
heard
fucks his
Darth's
dog.
script before, right? I could engage him, but it's the same script, and I don't think people.
Here's the thing about Darth. His autism is so severe, he's been able to do this for 10 fucking years.
It doesn't matter. We do not. We're trying not to overtalk each other in this room.
Sure, Molly.
But this is true, no?
Sure, Molly.
Well, just ask EF how God's beliefs are justified. Would you like to answer that?
It's like you're arguing with a child.
Well, Jack, this reminds me of like one of my earliest conversations with Darth, the question that he was never able to answer of mine, which is, how do you recognize a non-fallacious circle from a fallacious one?
Well, that's a good question. Yeah, what's the distinction between, what's the property that distinguishes virtuous from vicious circularity, Darth?
Yeah, I never got an answer for that.
Hey, for Custies, we had that exact argument yesterday. So that question is a category error.
Yeah, and it's
And the
also a
reason-
change of topic, Ace, so I wouldn't even go there.
Right, no, but
yeah.
I'll just explain really quickly
So,
why it's a
in
category error, right? Because we
Well, but
talk
you're
about
changing
God's
the
knowledge
subject,
and
and I wanted to
analogy.
respond to what
You weren't even talking. What do you mean wanted to respond?
Okay, so Ace.
We had other people
Silent-
talking. Let Ace talk,
Silent
Darth.
is apparently objecting to all circular reasoning, because he didn't specify that it would be only.
Yeah, I'm really just listening. I'm in between. I gotta do some push-ups, guys. So I'll just listen.
Since Silence objects to all circular reasoning, that would include any appeal to any ultimate authority, and since he would reject any appeal to ultimate authority, that when he makes a predication or an assertion, then we would say, well, what would justify that? Well, he's already
wait a
he's
minute.
ruled out all forms of circular reasoning, and he wouldn't be able to appeal to any ultimate and final authority. Then what would be the justification for any predication he makes? Well, the answer is they wouldn't be one.
One second. You didn't establish that any appeal to an ultimate authority is circular. What's the argument for that, Darth? That's just a claim. Now, are you going to say why do you object?
Jack, I know you say it's a claim, right? But it's a claim I'm fine with accepting, right? It's one of the things that he asserted, that all appeals to circularity are going to be appeals to ultimate authorities. Doesn't get him out of the issue of recognizing.
Yeah, we could grant for the sake of argument the claim that he can't defend that all reasoning is circular, right? Or that all worldviews are circular, or all appeals to a final authority are circular. Let's grant it for the sake of argument. The atheist can engage in circular reasoning just as well as the Christian can, right? So the question is, on what basis...
God doesn't exist, therefore God doesn't exist.
Yeah, so the question is, on what basis does Darth object to the circular reasoning of atheists, right? Presumably he wants to claim that that type of circular reasoning is vicious rather than virtuous. So we'd like to know what the criterion is that distinguishes virtuous from vicious circularity, Darth. So when I ask you that question and you don't respond, are you doing anything different from when Silent says he doesn't want to talk to you because you're a piece of shit?
Oh, fuck.
Ouchie.
And to be clear, I don't want to talk to him because we've had the conversation before and it's just a boring script.
Well, I want to talk to you, Darth. Do you not want to talk to me because you've talked to me before?
Well, and Jack, I mean, isn't that any different than what you do to me? Because Jack, you won't talk to me.
Yeah.
You've refused to talk to me.
Yeah, the problem, as I said it, any assertion or predication that Silent makes, we say, well, how do you justify or ultimately account for that? He's going to have to appeal to something.
Darth, I'll tell you what. I'll engage you if you'll engage Jack.
Okay. So, do you reject all circular reasoning, Silent?
You're gonna
Repeat
have to
what you
engage
said,
Jack.
Silent.
Okay. Well, then I guess we can't have a conversation.
Yeah, why are you so scared of Jack?
Yeah. So the problem is, when you reject all circular reasonings, you also therefore include in that a rejection of any appeal to an ultimate authority. So then, what would stand behind any predication?
The problem
Did you hear what Silent said, Darth?
Oh, is that Jack Angstrike?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, no, he heard Jack, but he's too much of a bitch to engage you. He's just a fucking bitch.
Come
See,
on, you
Tofi,
guys were
when
calling
you
me a
were
troll?
Guys, listen, we
Tofi,
don't have
when
to
you
go
were,
the st-
Well, I mean, did
Tofi,
Jack
when
hear
you were
me? I mean,
asked
Jack
about,
won't
Ace,
engage me
stop.
in any
Ace,
conversation.
stop.
okay,
I'm just
so
saying,
Tofi,
Jack
Overtalk.
fails to talk to me.
And Tofi, do you understand that when they object to circular reasoning, they would either be objecting to all circular reasoning or some circular reasoning? So if they only object to some circular reasoning, they're going to have to tell you why the circular reasoning that you're using would fall within the set of the some circular reasoning that I object to. But that's highly unlikely that they're going to take that position. So they're probably taking the position, Tofi, that they reject all circular reasoning. Well, as I said earlier, Tofi, that would include any appeal to one's ultimate authority, because how would you establish that something is the ultimate authority? It would be because the ultimate authority told you so or communicated that to you.
And what did
Now,
we
if you
say?
therefore reject all circular reasonings, and that would include any appeal to any ultimate authority, then when somebody, Tofi, makes a predication or an assertion like the dog is running in the backyard, or what you're saying is fallacious, or I had ice cream after dinner tonight, what's going to ultimately justify those predications if there's no ultimate authority? You see the conundrum that they're in, Tofi?
What did we say in response to that, Darth? Maybe you don't recall, so I'll repeat what we said. Okay, what we said was, first of all, you simply made a claim that all appeals to a final authority are circular, right? But you didn't actually establish that claim. You just reasserted it. We asked you for the argument that all appeals to a final authority are circular. And you haven't given that argument, right? Now, the second thing we said is, even if we granted that for the sake of argument, you'd need to have a criterion by which you distinguish vicious appeals to circularity versus virtuous circularities, right? And you haven't provided that criterion either, Darth. So we don't see on what basis you can object to the circular reasoning of atheists, right? Now, are you just going to repeat the same things that you said before, or are you going to respond to those objections?
Jack, I don't think I'll respond necessarily, but just to
Silent.
educate me.
I'm just telling you, as soon as you talk, Darth is just going to jump on what you
I
said.
realize that, but Jack, can you explain the distinction between the two circularities, just to teach me?
Well, the thing is, this is basically something
He doesn't know.
Yeah, I
just like Joe Biden said.
He's chastising Tofi, and he doesn't understand.
Why is he talking?
That's hysterical, Silent. Thank you for revealing that you don't know.
I
Darth,
don't know.
do not overtalk people.
Yeah.
Well,
This
so
is
Darth
gonna-
is probably not going to answer this. Maybe Tiny can.
No, I'm actually gonna go because I didn't realize Jack Angstrike was in here, and it's
Too scary.
Run away from the big bad.
Wait.
Yeah.
Hold on a sec. Jack Angstrike is in here, therefore what?
It's just kind of absurd to call me a troll. I was being pretty polite with you guys, and
Hold on a sec. You
Jack
don't think
Angstrike
Jeff was
is here.
polite? He's not even raised his voice.
No,
he might
but
have said one insult, maybe, if I remember.
Yeah, but
I mean, Jack's been
I
impolite plenty of times.
I know who
So, I mean,
Jack
just because
is.
he wasn't impolite this time doesn't mean anything.
Would you stop?
No, he didn't insult anybody. He only referenced silence.
No. The issue is who Jack is.
Dude,
So.
Tiny, this is all meta. Silent asked a question. Can you answer his question?
I don't recall what the question was.
What's the difference between the two types of circularity that Angstrike is referencing?
I'm not even aware of the two types of circularity that he's referencing.
Okay, so maybe Jack can explain it to us and we can both learn something?
No, because I'm not gonna listen to Jack Angstrike.
Okay.
Have you ever interacted with Jack Angstrike before?
It's going back into meta.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have before, yeah.
And why won't you interact with him?
Because I think he's a bad person.
Oh, okay, sure.
Why is he a bad person?
Dang it.
What's bad about Jack?
It's opinion, dude.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I really want to go into that right now, but
Yeah, it is opinion, but it's not going to be just irreducible, right? Supposedly you have some sort of experience with Jack that makes you not like him. I think he's a bad person. What is that?
yeah, as I said, I'm not going to go into that right now. I'm actually going to be leaving. So.
Run, coward,
Yeah,
run.
Tofi, you did a very good job. You just need a little bit more practice.
Yeah.
Hey, Darth.
Thanks for the conversation, guys.
Later.
Hey, Darth. We're still waiting for your answer to those 2 objections. Are you going to do a good job in responding to those objections?
Hysterical here. Silent is chastising Tofi for
Can
using
someone mute
circular
Darth
reasoning, but then
while
he doesn't
Angstrike
even
explains this
understand.
to me? I'd like to learn.
Yeah, Darth, you did a good job, but you're going to need a little bit more practice.
Yeah, so the idea is this is something basically that has been conjured up by presuppositionalists. It's not a distinction that is standard in ordinary analytic philosophy between vicious and virtuous circularities. I mean, there is such a notion, but it's not really the same notion that presuppositionalists use. So they just simply say, right, that when they engage in circular reasoning, it's not a problem, and therefore it's not viciously circular. But when atheists engage in circular reasoning, or when any other worldview engages in circular reasoning, that's a form of vicious circularity, right?
Oh, I understand.
And they want to say that vicious circularities are fallacious and that virtuous circularities are not fallacious, right? But the question is, in virtue of what property are some arguments viciously circular versus being virtuously circular? So they need a criterion that distinguishes virtuous circularity from vicious circularity, right? And they've never actually produced this criterion anywhere in their literature, right? So when you ask Darth Dawkins what makes something virtuously circular or viciously circular, he just pulls stuff out of his ass, right? Like saying things like there has to be some path of justification which involves an omniscient being, you know, he just makes stuff up on the spot, right? But when you start asking him to explain how the criterion works, he runs away, right? So you can just ask him right now what his distinction is between virtuous and vicious circularities.
Okay,
and
so
it's going to end with "come on his face."
So I understand. I understand now the distinction that you're making, Jack. Thank you. So Darth, what's your criterion for making the distinction?
Wait a minute. You told me several times you weren't going to converse with me.
Yeah. Well, we don't have to converse, right? But I'll consider it.
Why did you tell me you weren't going to converse with me?
Well, I told you if you're going to.
Oh, now you don't want to converse with him, Darth?
Hold on.
Excuse me. Other people are talking.
Well, Darth, I'll answer your question.
Why did you have a change of mind?
Well, you see, I don't really consider it changing my mind because I consider this like. Well, hold on, Darth. Hold on, Darth. If you'll stop over talking me, I'll explain. Right, so I don't consider it a change of mind because I consider that you're engaging with Jack as Jack explains concepts to me. So I don't consider it a change of mind at all. So will you answer my question?
Okay, so I had asked you earlier before, my first question to you was, do you object to all circular reasoning?
Yeah, what's your criterion between the first two?
Okay, I didn't understand the answer. Was that a yes?
Are you not going to answer Silent's question, Darth?
No, he won't.
Did you just say that you object to all circular reasoning?
Ask him if he's going to answer your question.
Will you answer my question, Darth?
Okay. I asked you a question. I'm waiting for a response.
I asked you a question. I'm also waiting for a response.
I started the conversation by. I'm not going to keep doing this. I started the conversation by asking
So
you,
you
do you
don't
object to
reject
all
it.
circular
Hold on.
reasoning?
Okay, hold on. So Darth, I
Now, it's
understand.
a very simple question.
No, Darth,
I'll be glad to respond to you momentarily. Do you object to
Darth,
all?
I understand. Hold on. Are you telling me that we'll go question for question?
Okay.
Oh fuck,
Okay.
Darth Hawkins kryptonite. Oh shit.
Now,
Because if we go question for question, I'm happy to answer your question first.
Hey, Silent. Do you mind if I?
Okay,
do you mind
Silent.
if I
I'm
set
not going
up
to play
the-
this game. Are you going to answer my question?
No, if I will answer your question, I will answer your question.
Thank you for
I will
lying
answer
that
your
you were gonna
question
converse
if
with me.
you
I'm
go
done
question
now.
for
I'm
question
done.
with me.
Thank you for
Silent, your
thank you for
answer
your
will
time.
lead to your silent. Your
Hold on.
answer will lead to the answer to your question, because if you're not sure, because you don't know the criteria of his.
He'll consider that a non-answer,
different
right? And then
time.
he'll just ask me the question again.
I would probably just say that I do object to all circular reasoning. Something wrong with that?
Yeah, it seems like all that needs to happen is Darth needs to go, well, what about this type of circular reasoning? And then, give his reasons why we shouldn't object to that, right? So just if you pick a position, Silent, it seems like we can move forward with the discussion.
Well, Joe, I have no problem. Like, I already knew what my answer was going to be to the question, right? The real issue is whether or not he'll just ask me another question and then won't answer mine, right? That's the issue.
Well, his response is going to be an answer to your question.
So, just pick one, Silent, and just go.
No, he's already muted me, I assume. Darth, do you have me muted, or will you engage with me? I'll answer your question.
No, I have, but my patience is running out.
All right, Darth.
Oh, fuck.
So I'll engage
Say
with
you do.
So Darth, I have a problem with all circular reasoning. Now, will you explain to me the difference?
Yeah. All circular reasoning, you can either have circular reasoning that appeals to not an ultimate authority, or you can appeal to circular reasoning that is from an ultimate authority, where you have a terminus in terms of your justification. Now, since you reject all circular reasoning, on what basis do you support or justify any assertion or predication you make?
He didn't answer your question. The question is, what is the criterion by which he distinguishes virtuous?
I'm not going to do a menage a
Excuse
trois,
me.
Silent.
Excuse
You're
me,
going to have a
Darth.
conversation with
Excuse
me.
I'm not going to talk over other people.
Excuse me.
Well, you know exactly
Darth.
what I'm referring to. So you're going to have
Excuse
a
me.
conversation with me.
Darth, I can't hear you
or
right now.
not.
Darth, I can't
Okay.
hear you over someone else talking.
I asked you a question.
I'm talking, Darth.
Okay.
So he didn't
All right,
answer your
if I don't hear a
question.
response shortly, then I'm going to stop the conversation.
He didn't answer your question, Silent.
Okay.
So he hasn't. If you're playing
You have
question
5
for
seconds.
question,
You're talking over something. Go ahead, Jack.
if you're playing question for question, he has to actually answer your question.
Agreed.
Right. The question you asked him was, what is the criterion he uses to distinguish vicious circularity from virtuous circularity? Right. That's the question. So he can't ask you a question until he answers that question. What is the criterion?
Yeah, can I have that distinction, please, Darth?
No, I'm not going to have a conversation with you where there's going to be a third party interjecting, where when I ask you a question and I hear dead air and you're also being coached.
I'm not being coached, right?
Yeah, you are.
No, hold on,
now
Darth.
you're lying.
Hold
Now
on,
I'll
Darth.
ask you one more time.
Yeah.
On what basis?
Yeah, see, Darth.
This is
Darth.
your last chance.
Darth.
Oh, guys, just
Okay,
why
I'm
do
done.
you
Thank
even
you.
bother having these discussions when you get to this point?
Look, I don't know.
Yeah,
If he's not
yeah,
going to
I
answer
gave
my
you- I
question,
gave you-
right,
I
he's
gave
just
you
going to
all
argue
five
in bad
chances.
faith. He's just
Silent,
arguing
just
in
take
bad
5,
faith.
man. Take a knee, buddy.
I'll ask the question one last time. On what basis can you justify any predication that you make?
Can you provide me with your distinction?
If you reject all circular reasoning, which would also include an appeal to an
Can you
ultimate
provide me
final
with your
authority,
criterion, please?
On what basis can you justify any predication?
Darth, can you provide me with your criterion, please, by which I can distinguish?
Listen, conversations now over.
Bye-bye.
I told you with
I don't know why you.
face.
Yeah.
Darth, have you ever answered this question for anyone else?
If you're so inept to think for yourself that you need to be coached by others and have to act as a sock puppet, I feel sorry for you.
Do you know what he was saying, Darth? How do you know I was being
embarrassing.
coached?
Well, I have a
Darth,
number
did
of
you feel
people
sorry
in
for
here
Kofi
who
when
I
you were
have their
coaching him?
volume is turned down to 2%.
So you can, Darth, you
I
can
can
coach
hear
Tofi, but
people
somebody
slightly
else can't
above.
coach me. Is that what you're saying?
Actually, I didn't coach him. I was
Oh.
in conversation with him.
What's the
To be
distinction between
fair-
what you did and what you
No.
believe
Hey,
Angstrike is
listen,
doing?
I gave you many opportunities to
What's
have a
the difference,
conversation
Darth?
with you. I told you.
Darth,
All
you
right, is
definitely
anybody
did.
else just sick of
Hold on.
silence more than Darth? I mean,
Yeah, hold on. Like, Darth, have you ever answered this question? Just give the answer.
Look at that. Come on his
Yeah, I don't even
face.
know what he means. What was his question? How do you
Like Matt
justify any
Yeaster has
verification?
attempted to answer it,
You see,
but I
Silent,
didn't
if you
understand.
can't
Hold on,
think
Darth.
on
I
your
wasn't done
TV,
talking, Darth.
you can't converse by
Darth,
yourself,
I
and you
wasn't
have
done
to be sock
talking, Darth.
then it's
Darth,
just
if you
no
don't
point
mind,
conversing with you. It's embarrassing for you, Silent.
Darth, I wasn't done talking. So Matt Yeaster attempted to answer this question, but it didn't really seem all that helpful. It seemed like you could just make a parody argument. Like you can make a parody argument against like ultimate authority. Like you could just make any claim and say, so that's why you have a concern between vicious circularity and virtuous circularity. But look, everyone could just make claims. What about your claim makes it so we should start agreeing with you, Darth?
Why is Darth giving Silent shit for taking notes from people? Like he verbatim rips off Greg Bonson.
Guys,
What the fuck?
did you know that the non-existence of God is the ultimate authority? Because get this, the non-existence of God is the ultimate authority.
My mind is
How
not
do you
blown, Alex.
how do you defeat that?
I'm a
Darth?
full-on anti-theist
How-
now, Alex.
How do you? Darth can't argue against that.
oh fuck.
It's circular. We recognize it as our ultimate authority. He has no argument.
Is it a secret?
Oh fuck.
Is what a secret, Joe?
Is his answer to this question a secret? I've heard this asked a whole bunch of different presuppers all the time.
He thinks his answer is the ultimate justification.
Yeah, but
Is that his answer? Did you hear his answer? Like what he uttered?
Yeah, he said ultimate justification.
Yeah, he said his distinction, his quote distinction, right, is that some circles can be final authorities, and other circles aren't final authorities. Riddle me which one's a which.
Look, is there a room where he goes and they all go, no, it's a good thing you didn't answer this question. It's a good.
Oh fuck.
That was a good call. It was a good call on your part to